You came here to hear about Polymer, right? Polymer? No? Okay. That's actually great. You can find me on Twitter, on GitHub, wherever, like same nickname. I work at Hell Yeah. Paul told you all about it. So also I contribute to these two awesome projects. You've probably heard of Chai, right? It has awesome syntax. It's really technically complex. It has proxies and stuff. Like remember the VTFs you got when you mistyped the getter for assertion and it passed, but it shouldn't. It was fixed in 3.5, and they've deployed like proxies to millions of users, and it's kind of cool. It has really nice contribution experience. You should definitely check it out. And the branch, our kind of in-house project, it's like Webpack, but it lacks a lot of bullshit, and that's why it's really great to use. It has awesome plugin API, right? You just define some methods and they get invoked and you return promise and that's it, right? It's quite opinionated, so to do something not trivial, you have to like be smart. But for most users, it's nice. Also, I am helping browser vendors to implement bug-free ECMAScript 6, right? So you can find me on the bug trackers. I often report them stuff, mostly connected with the DOM APIs plus new ECMAScript 6 features. You've been told, like yesterday, that we have like 100% support. It's actually a lie, like pretty big damn lie. Like 10% of a test suite fails on latest node, 6 point like X. So we are closing in, but we are not there yet. So if you found some browser inconsistency, please reach out to me or to vendors like directly. Okay, so our topics is web components, right? You've probably heard these 4 things. So web components is 4 standards: imports, templates, shadow, and custom. Let's dig in. Imports is it's a really nice thing you will never need like in quite a long time. You would find my slides under the hashtag, right? Or you can Google it just. It's about 10,000 imports and how they hang up Chrome. So we will vulcanize, so bundle our polyfills for quite a long time. Not because HTTP 2 sucks. It does suck in some way. But it gives a lot of overhead for every node inserted, for every document created for this import. So also Safari and Edge, they are not going to implement it anytime soon because it has conflicts with ES6 modules proposal, right? And its implementation, not proposal, it's already a web standard. So we won't see imports for quite some time, and there is not bigger deal, really. We don't need them. Templates, you've probably used them because the HTML5 thing, they were implemented in Edge 13, Safari 8, and like a couple dozen versions ago in Chrome and Firefox. That's how it looks like in Polymer. I will note that something that it's about Polymer or it's about web standards. It's a Polymer syntax. We have template in template. Looks cool, right? With this, we differ in parsing to browser, but we should use only like allowed syntax for HTML. So this kind of micro performance win, right? But templates aren't quite popular. I would argue that we don't need them, but syntax is really nice. So Polymer gets a document fragment for each of these templates, right? And it renders it. It doesn't parse anything. Browser parses it. And it's kind of cool. So the thing is DOM repeat. We extend template. We'll talk about this later. Yeah, and it gives us iteration. Not very fancy, right? But kind of a platform. OK, the shadow DOM. Remember the style scoped thing back in like a couple years ago, right? I've probably seen it in Riot. It scopes styles to the parent element of style, but it leaks elements, styles for elements to inner components. So it doesn't provide like two-way, like both-way encapsulation. So that proposal sucked, and we got rid of it. It was deleted from the WhatWG spec a couple months ago. And we have slots, and we have scoped styles, like real scope styles we've been waiting for. We have sub-tree isolation. It is not secure enough for some of you, right? So this most secure thing is iframe, sandboxed iframe, because you know you can patch element prototype wherever, and your sub-tree won't be so isolated. And we have custom elements, like the most important thing here. We have autonomous and extends, like the ones they extend built-ins. Guess what? Is the first one correct or the second one? So how would you make the relative time component? Anyone? No? First one, second one? First one. Both. OK. Actually, it's the second one only. It has some. I didn't tell you something, right? I didn't tell you the time is not supported in Chrome. Like it doesn't have a constructor. So it's not quite possible to do this hack-free. But this is a syntax we should be using, right? Extending built-ins gives us a lot of shit free, right? So it's not very noticeable on time element, but imagine we have some accessibility software that hunts for time elements and, like, don't know, adds some cool user experience for adding them to calendar or something else. It won't recognize relative time as time element. However, it's compatible. It has the same attributes, right? It has a different content. We have kind of like some minutes ago, wherever. You should be doing like the second one. Also, you've probably encountered this widget. GitHub has it, right? They've written it in we null spec, right? The previous custom element syntax, but still they use it and it works, so it's cool, right? Same thing here. Extend shit, like don't do this. We have to re-implement a lot of stuff that button provides for us, right? We should make the button clickable on space. We should like make it disabled, and it should respond to the disabled pseudo class. We should label it correctly if we don't extend. We should put a role for it if we don't extend. Paper button is a couple thousand lines of code, right? For the simple thing. Like, don't do this. Don't re-implement what browser has for you. Extend. And this is a good example of how you do web components. You can, there is a demo, you can check it out. It's images that load on intersection observer events. Like you just scroll down and it encounters this image and it puts the right SRC. And it's about 50 lines of code, all of it, because of old API. With the new API, it will be even shorter. So, yay. Of course, for every technology, there is a website. Is this technology ready? Right. So this is one for web components. So why do we need them? We kind of handled the web for 20 years before them. We can easily create like cool cross-framework widgets, components. They are mostly not data heavy, like visual components, date pickers, wherever, like calendars, other stuff. Or we can build entire application based on web components. We could just replace React components with the web components, and will be kind of cool. You shouldn't do this like blindly, but it's a possibility. And to do this, we would wrap them in better API, in like Polymer does, and other libraries. So now we'll be talking about features of Polymer mainly. Yeah. Okay. Quite a simple code, right? You've probably seen on Twitter or in Babel issues that it doesn't compile correctly. You know, Babel compiles it to the call, like function prototype call, and it's not cool. It should do like new thing, and that's why it doesn't work. Yeah. This more correct way of transpiling, right? So we do this, and the guy, Web Reflection, he proposed another solution, but it's a perfect solution. But it requires the author of Polyfill for Reflect Construct like be collaborative with the guys who will do web components, Polyfills. They should use the same interface. They would have some weak map in common for the reflect construct, and they should pass the third parameter, right, to this function. And they should kind of do it in some way. Like, for example, as the last parameter, and if it's instance of something in scope, we do this or that. So it's possible, but kind of it's very unlikely in the community where we bike shed, right? So the main thing here is my L, third parameter to reflect construct. Why it's important, right? Because if we would write v0, like v1 spec, we wouldn't compile it to v0. Like there is an issues. We can't call this class, right? Oops. We can't call this class without new, right? So also we have some polyfills issues, right? A couple months ago, I've encountered this thing. It shouldn't work, but it does. When you define an element, it saves references to your callbacks, its lifecycle callbacks, and it doesn't resolve them every time. So this shouldn't work, but it's kind of, you know, nice syntax. Yeah. Method names. v0 differed in them, right? Because there was issues with polyfills. They've started spread, and this final semantics of custom elements weren't ready. So Dominic has had to change names of callbacks, and we end up here. Wrapper can just shorten them easily or group it in some hash. Like attributes access, it's how Polymer does it. I give a constructor, yeah, and it gives me this instead of this, right? Pretty neat. Also, it's very convenient for the extents. We can't define custom attributes on extended elements. We can do only data attributes. It's also the thing people tend to forget. We can't, it's not valid. And it may collide with what this element has or will have. Yeah. So this syntax will do get attribute data minus username. Right. Kind of cool. Extending. Yeah, it's a new API, not very concise. We can kind of create this interface from this tag name. We can do otherwise, sadly, right? Because for some tag names there are, for a couple tag names there are one interface. Okay, so we can do just this. Better. Default values, computed props, wherever. It's the time where I start like picking on Polymer. Yeah, it doesn't resolve type just by value. It can easily get the constructor. It's like a couple lines of code. There was an issue and PR for this, but they didn't accept it. It's not. They said it's not very like user-friendly or magic, wherever. Also, computed properties. We have code in strings. Like in 2016, we have code in string. Like so it could make connections. So this property should update when that one updates, etc. We can do better, right? We can do object destructuring and get it from there. It would be like a regex parser, couple lines of code. It's way better. Of course, the new API is also, it has some issues, right? You should never omit super. It should be like the first statement in your constructor. Actually, it may be like any statement before you use this, right? But spec authors recommend like first statement. You shouldn't return anything from constructor. There is a proposal that if you return from constructor primitive, it will throw like in proxies. It's not implemented yet. It wasn't merged to standard yet, but just so you know. So you may do some stupid return here, and it will kind of crash. And you can extend like by accident run interface. It will also be really cool. So we can link that. We can also link the tag names. So if the tag name consists some well-known tag and it doesn't extend it, it's not cool, right? We may also warn like on typos. If you misspell some callback, you get an error. And we would require data attributes for the extended elements. Like so you would be like spec perfect. And of course, the main feature of these wrappers is templates or DOM patching. Like Polymer provides you templates. KJS, incremental DOM. Right? Current solutions, Xstack is not maintained like for a while now, couple months. It had previously support by Microsoft. It had kind of nice decisions on events, yeah, with some custom syntax, not kind of very modern, but still. So it's either Polymer or Skate, right? I've read the Skate source code. It handles a lot of V0, V1 issues, right? It has like 400 lines of code just handling the API differences for the browsers that won't be longer supported in quite a short time. It's not cool. Also, it has some inline polyfills, also not cool. Polymer here has even on conference get some media attention and stuff, right? Recently there was 2.0 update, like future changelog. It's not ready yet, but it's very promising. Also, we can do truly private fields with wrappers. What does it mean? When you get an element from DOM, you won't have access to some of its internal, some of the private properties. For example, I want to every property that I start with underscore make private. I can do that. I just wrap an element in proxy and give it to my wrapper. And if I define the element, the key that starts like this, it will be stored in some object that's in scope, not on the element itself. So it's kind of important if you deliver some components that you, proprietary components, if you sell them. Some people still do this, right? So yay. And the state management issues. This is how Polymer looks like. It's not very uncommon. Ember has it. Other frameworks, they also have it. Doesn't look very cool. With Flow and TypeScript, it's also disables them from type hinting. We used to kind of put our hopes on object.observe on this, yeah. But it wasn't a perfect solution. It was asynchronous. It didn't handle. It was too high-level API. It just was designed to fail. That's why I propose a solution of membranes. Like, you know, there's a proxy, and it can wrap an object. Membrane can wrap an entire object graph. Yeah, and when some object crosses this membrane, it also gets wrapped. Yeah, for example, I have an object and it's wrapped, and it gets set call, and another object is a value. It's also being wrapped before passing to the setter. Yeah, etc. There's some terms. Dry object is proxy, wedge is real object, right? There are a couple of implementations for this by Tim Van Katsem, the guy who designed proxy API, and by other guy who works with Firefox team. You should definitely check them out. The first one is it's a little bit old. It uses some old proxy API, but still. However, we have an issue with collections. You know, we want to have maps, dates, other stuff in our state, and we should update when someone calls like set hours, wherever. Yeah. Okay. What's wrong with this code? Yeah. Anyone? 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 No? It's okay? Right. It's okay. Let me just wrap it in the proxy. I just add no handler here. It should just do the same thing, right? Kinda no. We've lost our tag here, and we are getting type errors on every method we call onDate. That's onDate prototype. That's because proxy creates a new object that doesn't have slots that date has. Date has one slot with timestamp in milliseconds. And all these methods, they use it. They change it or they format it, but they kind of depend on it. When the new proxy is returned, it doesn't have binding to slot here. That's why we have these issues. And it will happen for regular expressions, for maps, for sets, for everything but functions, kinda, objects and arrays. It's kinda. Everyone talks about proxies, right? I've seen dozens of articles. No one mentions these particular issues. Let's try to fix it, right? So we'll just write in code to make our proxies work as expected, right? So we see if we have toString tag here, that means that object prototype toString is called, okay, and receiver is not target. It's kind of bad check, but it will get us here if receiver is a proxy, right? And we call toString on target. Otherwise, we just reflect, okay, we fixed this issue, right? Still nothing here. Okay, let's check for functions. If we have a function, we check its context for receiver. Receiver is our proxy. If we do object create of our proxy, receiver will be something else. So it's a kind of really nasty check, but okay. So we swap the context here for target. So we call getJ not on proxy, but on a real target. Yeah. And it works. Yay. I had to write like 20 lines of code just to make it work. What if I try to do something with a function I returned? Like call toString on it? It will fail. Okay. Let's pass get to the function here. So it will do exactly the same for the functions. Yeah. Of course, talking about perf, this is extremely slow. Yeah. But it kind of works. But this one doesn't. And there is no way to fix it except patching every method that uses internal slots. Of course, we can do this because we have some non-configurables. For example, function prototype symbol has instance. If we, it kind of bothers me because bound functions, they have some internal slots for the instance of. So instance of will lie for proxies in some ways. Yeah. I'm resolving this issue, kinda. Yeah, just patching in, patching methods. You can follow me on GitHub and like check out for updates. We have quite a lot of time, so we'll get to answer your questions about web components and stuff. Yay!
Thank you, Aleksey. And time for questions.
Hi, thanks for your speech. What about browsers implementation?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so thanks. We have like autonomous elements implemented in Chrome. Built-ins are still like insecure. There is a couple open bugs for them. Safari did autonomous in WebKit Nightly, but they don't quite like the idea of extending built-ins. They have implementation difficulties there. So maybe because of Safari, this won't be like next couple of months, right? We'll have to wait. Also, you can go to the IE user voice and vote for implementation. Yeah, it will be like really helpful. Yeah. So without Polyfills, you can ship it, and you won't be able to ship it for at least a year, thanks to the Safari team. Yeah. Anyone else? Anyone?
More questions?
Come on, you can do it like
yes,
in Russian.
Sure. First of all, the QA session will be only on the red stage, so the next topic, the blue stage will be empty. And come earlier to this stage because EPAM will raffle the prizes for you.
Question about accessibility. Just it's not clear. I'm writing, for example, custom component, yeah, and then how how to say how a browser would deliver to this accessibility browser which pronounce elements.
Okay.
So how
accessibility tree, what will happen with it?
Yeah.
Okay, that's a great question. Autonomous elements, they do not define any semantic meaning. Like if you make like my dash article, it won't have articles semantics. But if you extend, it will be like okay, because older browsers and the accessibility tree, it won't recognize the is attribute that gives an element this behavior. So it will ignore it and will do the thing will do what it does for buttons, for inputs, and for this stuff. That's exactly why you should extend. Yeah.
Another question, as far as I remember, there are some agreements across browsers vendors about loading custom components. The first load and how it works in generic page loading and rendering cycle. So
Okay. Also, nice question. These components are made with progressive enhancement in mind. You define HTML, and after the script loads, it will proceed with the definition, and the element will upgrade. The constructor will be called, and then connected callback will be called. Right? You can prevent flash of unstyled content using defined pseudoclass to hide some elements that shouldn't be displayed. So for the browsers without JavaScript, for older browsers, they will behave exactly the same. Autonomous will be like divs, just simple elements, and the extended will be like the normal ones. About agreement, the spec is kind of finished. Yeah, there is some issues with Shadow DOM, with events there and stuff, but custom elements, I would say they are pretty stable in terms of API and edge cases. So everything is kind of fine.
Yeah, cool, yep. Thanks.
Hey, anyone else? No.
Yes, we have more questions.
Yeah, so how do you see the situation with Angular, React, Ember, blah, blah, blah? Because we have lots of libraries and frameworks. We are all trying to do the same thing, but in different way. How all of this ties to web components?
Nice question, thanks. Recently, React docs, they've changed, right? Did you kind of notice it? No? They've removed all the bullshit they've been writing about web components, that they are too imperative, that they doesn't solve problems. They've come up that they actually solve problems, but not the kind of problems React tries to solve and stuff. And they made it work. When you define element with a dash in JSX, you write class instead of class name, and other attributes, you write them as HTML attributes, and they get set attribute code. So you can't pass anything except strings there, but they work in React without any problems. A couple years ago, React has some wide list of elements and stuff, but those times they kind of long past. So before using custom elements, you should upgrade React if you didn't do this earlier. About other frameworks, they will do just fine actually. Because of smart DOM patching and virtual DOM techniques or Glimmer and stuff, the callbacks won't be called every time they will render it, and stuff. So they will just work as expected. So callbacks will be preserved in same order. Of course, you can pass them only strings, but you can subscribe to custom events. So with React components, you can pass any data and also functions. With web components, you just pass strings and listen for events. Custom events, they have detail fields that can be of any type, with any object and stuff. So this is how you program with web components. Yep, thanks. Anyone? No?
I guess no. So thank you to Aleksey again.
Yeah.